Who's got two thumbs, looks really good in black lipstick, and also cut her own bangs today? Yep. They're not that bad. I think the next time I shower and wash them, you'll see they'll dry down a little bit more nicely. Sorry, that was random, but I didn't script today's video, so that's what you get. As you saw by the title, I'm sure, I'm gonna be talking about all the movies that I watched in February. And because I don't have a script, I'm just gonna be freeballing it today. I think I'm just gonna briefly go over everything on my Letterboxd that I'm not gonna talk about today, because I do have a very big 80s video coming up, and so I'm not gonna talk about any of the 80s movies that I watched. So that means that 10 out of the 36 movies from the month of February on my Letterboxd I will not be covering. I'm also not going to talk about the My Bloody Valentine's movies because I made their own comparison video. Same goes for the Evil Dead movies. And then Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I give it its own whole review. But we still have a decent amount of movies to talk about, so let's just kick that off. Up first we have Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror. You can find this on Shudder. Delving into a century of genre films that by turns utilized, caricatured, exploited, sidelined, and finally embraced them, this is the untold history of Black Americans in Hollywood through their connection to the horror genre. I actually did talk about this a lot in a live stream that I did with my dad, if you haven't caught that one. In that, we also talked about Blacula and Tales from the Hood and Us, so I don't necessarily feel the need to go super in-depth with them, but Horror Noir, I gave a 4.5-star rating. I found it really, really interesting. They had a lot of very big names in it, and I think that it's probably one of the most concise timelines that I've seen about Black representation in horror. Super interesting, like going back to film school. It was like one of the best lectures I've ever seen. Moving on to Nightmare Alley, directed by Del Toro, that came out last year. An ambitious carnival man with a talent for manipulating people with a few well-chosen words hooks up with a female psychiatrist who is even more dangerous than he is. This one was a 3.5-star movie for me, but I still really enjoyed it. And I've seen people on Twitter talking about how they watched it in black and white, and now I really wish that I did. Although I watched it on HBO Max, and I don't think that that was an option. But of course, you have really amazing performances by Bradley Cooper and Cate Blanchett. Rooney Mara is also pretty good in this. The style of it feels pretty Del Toro, like it has very rich, saturated colors. There's a very consistent theme with the color. Also, there's a lot of greens going on. With The Shape of Water, there was a lot of blues going on. But this movie was almost giving me more of like a Hitchcockian vibe than a Del Toro vibe, although if I had watched it in black and white, maybe it would have felt a lot more like a tribute to those kind of noir 40s style movies, because after seeing some of the frames of the movie in black and white, I feel like that's actually how you're supposed to watch it. I love me a good black and white movie. The 50s is one of my favorite decades of horror, so I'm bummed I didn't know that that was a thing. Like, where are you guys watching this in black and white? Also, that one is nominated, I think, for Best Picture at the Oscars this year, but I stand pretty firm in my 3.5 stars. I don't think it's perfect by any means. I wouldn't even say that it's great, but it's good and it does a good job getting its message across. Basically, people are bad and that's just the way that it is. Up next, I watched a short, like 15-minute behind the scenes thing on the Queens Gambit. Since Christmas time, I got a chessboard for Christmas and I have been really, really into chess, so I've kind of been dying to rewatch the Queens Gambit. That's just a little bit of a time commitment, but now that I actually know the rules of chess, I really want to give it a rewatch, and so just to kind of like satiate a little bit of that, I watched the behind the scenes. Obviously not too much to talk about there. The next one that I can talk about in this video would be Paul, which I rewatched the same day that I went to CreepyCon, and you'll know why that's kind of ironic and funny in just a second. Listen to the synopsis. Two English comic book geeks travel to the United States to attend Comic-Con. Afterwards, on their way through their trip of alien destinations, they encounter a real alien outside of Area 51. I love Paul so much. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. I give it a perfect score. Just Seth Rogen as a highly intelligent, weed-smoking alien. I can't really ask for that much more. On that note, I'm kind of dying for a buddy stoner movie that stars two women as the leads. Seth Rogen and Cheech and Chong and all of them, they really cornered that market. I mean, maybe I should, like, why don't I just write it? Well, because writing a screenplay is hard. Oh, anyway, but it was just ironic we watched it in the same day because Paul makes fun of people that go to places like Comic-Con, like the type of fans that go up to their favorite celebrity and tell them their life story, that type of beat. Anyway, after that, I watched The Happening from 2008, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. When a deadly airborne virus threatens to wipe out the northeastern United States, teacher Elliot Moore and his wife flee from the contaminated cities into the countryside in a fight to discover the truth. Why did I watch this? I don't know. So I thought that I was a fan of M. Night Shyamalan because I enjoy precisely 3 of his movies: The Sixth Sense, Signs, and Split, obviously. So I thought I would give it a chance because I thought, oh, maybe I'll feel like it's so bad that it's good because it's early 2000s, it's Shyamalan, I love Zooey Deschanel. This movie was so bad. I don't know if I can really call myself a fan of M. Night Shyamalan anymore when so many of his movies that I've seen have been so bad. I know I'm being dramatic, but The Happening was so fucking weird. Zooey Deschanel is a really talented actress. Like, if you watch her in New Girl, she's hilarious, but she also has a lot of range. She has a lot of really good, heart-wrenching, emotional scenes throughout New Girl. So I know that she has the ability to emote that, and a lot of that is what was demanded from her in this movie. But oh my god, like, the acting performances were one of the worst parts of this movie. It was a super interesting story, interesting premise, something that I'm pretty sure I had never seen before. The pacing wasn't horrible. I think it had every opportunity to be a good movie, but the direction was just so weird. Because I know Zooey Deschanel is a good actress. I've seen her do it. I've seen her be very believable. She had one of the weirdest performances I've ever seen. Everything about this movie was so off-putting to me. And not really like in a good way. I have to say though that I think for about the first act, maybe up until we meet her character, I was very intrigued by this movie. It even would probably be like an honorable mention if I ever redid my top 10 horror movie openings of all time. It was good. It really hooked me and made me obviously want to finish the entire movie. And also low-key, like, come through Bird Box inspiration. I won't say where or why or how, just if you haven't seen the movie yet, but that was definitely there. I was like, okay. On Letterboxd, I did just say, why did I watch this? No question mark, just a statement. I could see a day maybe in the future where, now that I know just how bad it is, maybe it'll become one that's so bad it's good. Time will tell. I probably won't waste the time it would take to ever watch this movie again, but who knows? Up next, I rewatched The Bye Bye Man. That one would be from 2017. Don't say it, don't think it. When 3 college students move into an old house off campus, they unwittingly unleash a supernatural entity known as the Bye Bye known as the Bye Bye Man, who comes to prey upon them once they discover his name. The friends must try to save each other, all while keeping the Bye Bye Man's existence a secret to save others from the same deadly fate. I kind of love this movie. It's objectively terrible. It's so bad. It's so stupid. By the end of the movie, you've seen the Bye Bye Man in the flesh just so many times that it strips all the meaning away. You've seen him so many times, like, you're not scared of this man. There's also some really bad CGI effects in this movie that you have to laugh. It also stars Jenna Cannell from Terrifier, which you love to see it. She plays the medium who, like, gets into contact with the Bye Bye Man. And the tagline, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it. Honestly, at the time when it came out, I remember really enjoying the movie and actually being scared of it. I think because I was like 16. And now I think that this was probably my 4th time watching this movie. And I have no regrets. This movie is so bad. It's just such a great time. It won't be for everybody. And honestly, I cannot exactly put my finger on what it is as to why I feel like it's so bad that it's good. Because a lot of movies are just so bad that they're bad. So maybe I will get back to you on that. Oh, also, last thing before I move on from the Bye Bye Man, the most liked review on Letterboxd just says, the pee pee poo poo man. Somebody give this person a Nobel Peace Prize immediately. Who remembers this meme? Who remembers this? Because I'm not even kidding you, this is what I was gonna put in my Letterboxd review because I still remembered this meme from when the movie came out. This was the peak of comedy. This still is the peak of comedy. Actually, you know what? There was one other review that was even better than that. Somebody just really went to town, which I feel like this review is just so poetic in the way that it kind of mirrors the absurdity of the movie itself. The pee pee poo poo doo doo dingus stinky dinky sloppy toppy man. I love that. Bravo you. Okay, I'm sorry. Gonna move on now. Up next would be Blacula from 1972. An 18th century African prince is turned into a vampire while visiting Transylvania. 2 centuries later, he rises from his coffin, attacking various residents of Los Angeles, and meets Tina, a woman who he believes is the reincarnation of his deceased wife. This was a 3-star movie for me. It was okay. For a 70s blaxploitation film, I think it's pretty much what you would expect. I honestly thought that it was a lot better than what I was signing up for. Also, the title of it makes it seem like it's gonna be a lot more schlocky than it is, but it's actually a fairly serious movie. It's also an important milestone. I think that this was the first time that there was a black lead playing a vampire in horror. Well, in film, period, obviously. Like, there's not gonna be a vampire in like a rom-com in the 70s. But I did talk about that one quite a bit with my dad in the live stream, as well as this next one, Tales from the Hood. This was directed by Rusty Cundiff, who was also in Horror Noir. He was interviewed. A strange funeral director tells 4 strange tales of horror with an African-American focus to 3 drug dealers he traps in his place of business. Something I do have to clarify from my live stream that's a little bit like embarrassing. The whole time I was watching this movie, my brain said Samuel L. Jackson. This man is not Samuel L. Jackson. My deepest apologies. This is Clarence Williams III. There are another couple actors that I mix up all the time. Another pair would be Jeff Bridges and Kurt Russell. Just because when they were younger, I don't know, my brain is like, it's the same person. That was definitely one of my favorite movies that I watched in the spirit of Black History Month. That movie is really heavy though, so just be forewarned. But really good. Gave it 3.5 stars. I gave it a heart. I really enjoyed that one. Up next would be Us, which I don't really feel the need to read the synopsis of. I don't think I really need to chat about this one. We all know this movie. Most of us love this movie, so I'm gonna move on. Oh, I can't really talk about this next one either because that would be Dark Skies from 2013. I rewatched this one with my dad as part of one of my upcoming videos where I go back and I rewatch all the horror movies I loved as a kid just to see if they still hold up, see if I still like them. Spoilers for this one, it was not quite as good as I remembered. A little bit embarrassing because I was like super psyched to show it to my dad and he was like, he was like, it was okay, but it wasn't anything great. And that man would be correct about that. So anyways, moving on, I also rewatched Spider-Man Homecoming. I watched this on Valentine's Day also. I know that most of you are horror heads, so I won't linger on this one. I didn't like this one as much as I remember enjoying it when it came out. To be fair, this is set in high school. It's the most high school vibey MCU movie there is, and I was 17 or 18 when it came out. It's okay. I think that Tom Holland is probably one of my favorite Spider-Men. He's the only one that like actually looks young enough and has a lot of the proper mannerisms, I think, for a teen. But the movies themselves with him, I just struggle to relate to because they are so teenager-y. And to be fair, that's like the audience that they're going for, so whatever. They're just like not for me. Okay, up next, watched The Evil Dead 2, Predator, Robocop, oh man. Oh, then I watched Leprechaun, but I can't talk about that either because, ooh, you people. I mentioned a while back that I kind of wanted to rank the Leprechaun franchise for St. Patrick's Day, and then I started this franchise. The first movie is bad. I thought that I would have a good time with it because Jennifer Aniston is in it, so I just like got really baked, and then the movie still wasn't very funny. And then I started the second one, which honestly, I kind of might be a little bit more into than the first one, but I still really didn't like it, and I only got about like halfway through. And then I posted to my Instagram story, I was like, I know that I kind of committed to ranking the whole franchise, but what if I just did a plot breakdown of the first movie on St. Patrick's Day? So I let you guys vote on it, and you guys chose to make me suffer, and you guys want me to rank them. So I'm not going to talk about Leprechaun today. Up next was Robocop 2, and I don't want to talk about this one because I did talk about this with my dad in live stream recently as well. The next one that I can talk about would be Valentine from 2001. Remember that kid everyone ignored on Valentine's Day? He remembers you. 5 friends are stalked by a masked murderer while preparing for Valentine's Day. Now, I really love this movie. I loved it so much the first time that I watched it, and I did a full review for last year's Valentine's Day, so you can watch that. I don't think I did a plot breakdown in that. I don't think I was doing all of that back then yet, but it is a very thorough full review, so I don't have too much more to add right now. It was my first time ever rewatching the movie, and to be fair, I only gave it 2.5 stars. It's pretty bad, but it's kind of just like that perfect brand of horror that I love. Like, it came out in 2001, has a lot of amazing leads. Oh my gosh, Denise Richards. Imagine playing that character, but also being Denise Richards and like being too hot to find a decent second date for Valentine's Day. I have to say, I didn't like it quite as much on a rewatch because the first time that you watch a whodunit movie, it's always the best. The only whodunit movies that haven't depreciated for me over time are the Scream movies. And I have a feeling I would also enjoy Urban Legend a lot on a rewatch, but we'll have to see. Oh, that's the same director as Valentine. So yeah, didn't love it as much this time, but I think it'll still remain an annual watch on Valentine's Day. After that, we had Basket Case, The Toxic Avenger, and then I watched behind the scenes Flesh and Steel, The Making of Robocop. That's self-explanatory, probably don't need to read the synopsis out for this one, but I gave it 3 stars. It was a fine behind the scenes little, I think 30 to 40 minute documentary. I feel like I learned a good amount, but I wanted them to go in a little bit deeper with all of the subtext of the movie, and I wanted to hear more about that from the director's perspective. But most of this documentary was kind of just talking about how working on this set was hell on earth, which is just such a common theme for like any of your favorite movies. I guarantee you the people that were making it were miserable. But the great Bruce Campbell once said, a movie that's easy to make is gonna be hard to watch. So anyways, up next, I watched 2 comedies that are very similar to one another, so just gonna lump them together. That would be Blockers and Booksmart. I did watch them on the same day with my bestie Natalie. We were just in a mood, a coming-of-age teen girls kind of mood. Both of these movies received 4.5 stars from me. Blockers has been one of my favorite comedies since it came out in 2018. Booksmart I just watched for the very first time somehow. I don't know how I managed to not watch it before now, but I loved it. It's so obviously made for people like me. I thought the humor worked really well. I feel like it really had the lesbian representation that we needed. It felt so accurate. Like it was so awkward, just mwah. And a lot of people are correct in saying that it's pretty much our generation's Superbad, and I'm totally fine with that. Blockers is a wild ride. Both of these movies are a wild, wild ride. They both involve sex and drugs and partying. Blockers just also happens to star John Cena, but both movies also have an amazing, heartfelt message to them, and that's why they're just gonna be endlessly rewatchable for me. Up next would be another one that I watched for my upcoming video about horror movies I loved as a child, and that would be Haunter from 2013. I will read the synopsis of this one though, because it is kind of interesting. A teenager is stuck in a time loop that is not quite the same each time. She must uncover the truth, but her actions have consequences for herself and others. I would say it's a safe bet that you shouldn't watch the trailer, because I would imagine that it would probably kind of give away the first act twist reveal, because this movie has a pretty dramatically unique take on a haunting story. So it is interesting, and I'm not going to talk about what I scored this movie because hopefully you'll stick around for that video when I talk about it next time. Up next would be a Shudder original called Slap Face. This was just released this year in 2022. Where do monsters come from? A boy deals with the loss of his mother by creating a relationship with a dangerous monster. So this one currently sits at a 1/2 star on Letterboxd for me, and I said I haven't finished it yet. I don't know if I can. That's just where I'm at with this movie. I couldn't get into it for the life of me. It's so drab. The movie literally opens with these 2 brothers just slapping each other in the face. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It also was very, very much giving me the vibe that like the real horror was the grief we felt all along. It's like, I know, I've seen that movie before. Do something more unique, okay? Or better, or whatever. Like if you're gonna do that again, pull an Ari Aster and make Hereditary and Midsommar. Unfortunately, just most Shudder releases are quite bad, but we do have an exception that we're gonna talk about very soon. Very soon actually being right now, because the next movie I watched was Evil Dead from 2013, just did a comparison video on that one. So The Boy Behind the Door, this was released last year. It says 2020 on Letterboxd, I don't know why. Bobby tries to save himself and his best friend when they are kidnapped on their way home from school. Now this Shudder original, this is the exception to the rule, babes. I gave it 4 stars and a heart. It's not perfect, but oh my god, my butthole was clenched for the entire duration of this movie. And I took an edible before watching it, which I did warn you on Letterboxd, do not take an edible before watching this movie, because that heightened the anxiety like woo. It was too much, okay? Consume responsibly and do not take an edible before you watch a very intense horror movie with these kind of themes. This movie is definitely going to be a contender for a couple of categories of the Oscars, I can guarantee you that. The acting by these young boys was so phenomenal. Like, I'm not even saying words. That's just how I was feeling. That's what this movie did to me. One thing to note especially that I wish that more films would take note of, the fact that you can tell that it's very low budget, but even with said budget and minimal lighting and everything, the cinematography was so beautiful. You don't need a high budget to have good cinematography or even great cinematography. It's as simple as knowing like the rule of thirds and just knowing how to frame a dramatic shot. This movie is beautiful. It has amazing acting. It has amazing twists, and it's so tense. It's one of the most tense things that I've ever seen. Also, the reason why these young boys have been kidnapped is for the pleasure of adults that are willing to pay, but if you're somebody that feels triggered by something like that, this movie is incredibly tense, but I just want to promise you that you're not gonna have to witness anything crazy disturbing. Like, I will not watch a movie like that. So just know you're pretty much safe. This movie is done with excellent taste. I was so surprised because with subject matter like that, that's a fine line you walk, and I thought that they handled it really, really well. And I'm really sad I didn't watch it when it came out, or at least back in 2021, because it probably would have made at least top 15, maybe even top 10 of my favorites of the year, but I just literally hadn't heard about it. Like, I've never seen anybody talking about this movie, and so you should go watch it. Just go watch it so you can talk about it, so more people can talk about it. Okay, sorry, whew, deep breaths. Up next, I watched Studio 666. The Foo Fighters' new horror comedy. Legendary rock band Foo Fighters move into an Encino mansion steeped in grisly rock and roll history to record their much-anticipated 10th album. Once in the house, Dave Grohl finds himself grappling with supernatural forces that threaten both the completion of the final album and the lives of the band. It's gonna be very hard for me to come up with the words to describe how I felt about this movie. It was very, very much giving me Satanic Panic vibes, which if you've been around on my channel, I talked about this movie, I think last month. Very low budget, very over-the-top gore, some really good comedy, some really bad comedy, just very similar vibes, and I cannot quite put the nail on the head. So I'm thinking honestly of like making a list on Letterboxd that only has these two movies on it, and I'm just gonna call it like movies that make me feel a very specific type of way. Because once again, this movie was kind of everything that I loved. Like, I love dark comedy. It has Leslie Grossman, Will Forte, Jenna Ortega. They have great little moments in the movie. Dave Grohl's acting is honestly not that bad. He's really funny. The terrible acting of the rest of the band just makes it a lot more enjoyable. A lot of the gore is pretty good. Like, you can tell that the Foo Fighters are horror fans themselves because they knew what to put in this movie. There's also an insane cameo, my god, and the score is done by John and Cody Carpenter. It's fantastic. Oh my god. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, John Carpenter soundtrack that I've ever heard that is not Halloween. Obviously, it's a movie that's made by a band, so a lot of it is about the music, and that aspect of it was so much fun, but I can't deny how much about this movie was so bad. Yes, I think it was intentional, but you know, I can't really explain it. It's just one of those things. All right, up next, we have Level 16 from 2018. The teenage girls of Vestalis Academy are meticulously trained in the art of being clean girls, practicing the virtues of perfect femininity. But what exactly are they being trained for? Vivian intends to find out. This movie was good. It was good. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't anything great. I don't feel like it's necessarily something that I haven't seen before. But what does make it really unique is the story. I did not expect the directions that we went in, that's for sure. And a lot about the style of the movie is very sterile and kind of just flat. It's a little bit blah. I know it's kind of meant to be because of the themes of the movie, like these girls are just basically imprisoned in this school, but I just don't really rock with that. Like, it made the movie feel a little bit more bland, which is unfortunate because there was really good acting. It's a very good story. Also, Miss Aunt Jenna from The Vampire Diaries was there. What were you doing there? And also, our lead from Fear Street, what even is her name? She's in this movie, and I don't even think she has more than one line. If that. Does she have a line? She might just be there. So it's intriguing. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie, but I feel like it is worth your time to watch, which is why I rated it at 3 stars. Also on Letterboxd, I said this movie's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it's not the whole package. That's kind of the best way I think I can describe it. And last, we have Hidden Figures from 2016. The untold story of 3 brilliant African-American women working at NASA and serving as the brains behind one of the greatest operations in history. The launch of astronaut John Glenn Glenn into orbit. I'm honestly kind of a sucker for these movies. I did give it 4 stars and a heart because I really liked it, but it is far from perfect. I'm sure that if you went and you kind of fact checked a lot of the moments of the movie, it would be wildly disappointing. This movie seems very, very sympathetic towards white people for sure. It's very much giving me the energy like, see, we aren't all that bad. And it also kind of gives me the impression that it's like, well, if you just work hard and you only speak up in the right moments, you can get your foot in the door. Oh, also, and if you're really, really exceptional. Which I think they kind of walk a line with, because these women that they were covering in this movie are extraordinarily exceptional, so I think that should be celebrated. But it was also kind of giving me the vibe of like, you should be this exceptional to be accepted as a black woman. So I was not surprised at all to learn that it was in fact directed by a white guy. Like, wow, what? But the movie is very feel-good and very cathartic, and I can't deny I'm such a sucker for that. It also felt like a really good segue because that was my last movie watch during Black History Month, and then this month is Women's History Month. So that felt like nice crossover, good Black women's history moment. Also, I think it won a couple Oscars back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's worth your time. Parts of it definitely are educational, and they happen true to history. All I ask is just, like, go in with a critical eye. But yeah, that'll do it for everything that I watched in the month of February. Oh, should I rank my top 5 of the month? Maybe I should do that real quick. Okay, hold on. I think that it's gonna be fair if I don't include any of the stuff that I've rewatched, because some of those movies are ones that I already loved, you already knew. So I won't include Blockers or Paul, to be fair. So coming in at number 5 would be Horror Noir. Just very informative, very good time, a well-paced and entertaining documentary. Coming in at number 4 would be the original My Bloody Valentine. I loved that movie so much more than I was expecting. Really just a peak 80s slasher. At number 3 would be The Boy Behind the Door. This movie, I'm not kidding you guys, it is so tense, you need to watch it. As a horror fan like you, I'm sure, I am constantly chasing that high of what it felt like when you used to be scared of horror movies, because these days it's so rare that a horror movie will scare me, but this movie, whew, the tension, the suspense. It's all a bit much, but totally worth your time. Coming in at number 2 would be Booksmart. I just cannot believe it took me this long to watch that movie. If you still haven't seen it yet, you should, especially if you would identify with the main characters. And coming in at number 1 would surprisingly be Robocop. I talked about that movie at length with my dad in one of our last live streams, so you can go listen to that if you want some more in-depth thoughts. But that movie blew me away. I'm still not over it. I need it on Blu-ray, and I need it expeditiously. But anyways, that'll do it for the month of February. Although today, the day that I'm filming, is still the 28th of February, and I am gonna go see The Cursed, so that'll obviously have to wait until my March wrap up, so I hope you stick around, subscribe, click the like, the notification bell. Oh, and of course, as always, I want to thank my lovely patrons. Thank you for your continued support and making sure that I can still make all these videos for you guys. Pretty soon, whenever I have extra time on a filming day, I will be reacting to every movie I've ever given a half star on Letterboxd. That'll be a Patreon exclusive, as in January I did post a video to my Patreon that was reacting to every movie I ever gave 5 stars on Letterboxd. So this is the opposite end of that spectrum, and I'm excited for that whenever that does happen. Hope you are too, and if you want to see it, my Patreon is linked down below. Please don't hesitate to tell me what your favorite movie was that you watched in the month of February down below. Have a good one, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!